What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. Our 2021 schedule previews and early projected records continue with the Georgia Bulldogs as they are up next. We'll take a look at the schedule and then project, based on that schedule, what their record could be in 2021. Strength of schedule makes such an impact, as we saw with Georgia just last year. They had to play Alabama in the regular season, and because of that game, they did not win the SEC East. They finished with 2 losses, tied with Florida. Of course, Florida won the tiebreaker. If they didn't have to play Alabama last year, and they finished with just that 1 loss to Florida, Georgia goes to the SEC Championship. They would then play Alabama and have a chance really to make it into the college football playoff. Maybe not even having to win that game. Just think about if they played them really, really tough. Maybe there would have been a path for them potentially to sneak in there. I don't know. But again, playing Alabama definitely made it a lot tougher on them. So let's take a look at the schedule for 2021 and see who they play. And you see right out of the gate, once again, there is going to be a very tough opponent. That's Clemson week 1. Could Clemson potentially keep Georgia out of the college football playoff this year? It's interesting. And again, you see these teams scheduling these really tough opponents, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. It's a risk. But I think the fact that they play Clemson in week 1, that's going to be good, because if they do lose that game, there's plenty of time for forgiveness. But let's see who they play outside of the division first, because we know who they're going to play in the SEC East, the teams they play every year, all the teams in the East. But these are the teams they play outside of the division. They'll play Clemson again in week 1. The game will be in Charlotte, neutral site game. Hopefully we have full capacity stadiums next year, and if we do, that is going to be a crazy environment and just a huge game. One of the biggest regular season games that I can remember in a long time, or at least a non-conference game, let's put it that way. Of course, there's been some huge conference games, particularly in the SEC. But you see UAB there also, a quality group of 5 team. UAB is not going to be a pushover, but still, that's not like they're playing a power team or anything. Charleston Southern FCS team. And then they'll play Georgia Tech, of course. They play them every year. Missed out on that rivalry last year. And Georgia Tech could be an interesting matchup this year. I mean, we'll see if they get better. They were not very good last year, but I think they have some young pieces. But anyways, they're 2 SEC West opponents. So you're talking about Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, a team I think is going to be a lot better this year. Probably the 3 teams you want to avoid out of the West. Well, Georgia avoids all 3 of them. They'll play Arkansas. Now, Arkansas proved last year that they are now a quality team, and I think they'll be better this year. So that's not going to be an easy win by any means. I don't know that you're going to find an easy win in the SEC West, period, this year. That division really getting better. So, yeah, you got Arkansas there at home. They played them last year, of course. And then you have Auburn on the road, rivalry game. Never can take that for granted, but Georgia should be the better team. So Auburn and Arkansas, a great draw out of the West. Again, no Alabama, no Texas A&M, no LSU. You can't ask for much more than that. So that's the good news. Yes, you have to play Clemson in the non-conference, but you get a very good draw out of the SEC West, which I think gives Georgia a really, really good shot to win the SEC East if they can beat Florida, which I think they're going to be favored in that game. So let's go back to the schedule. They'll open up with Clemson there on September 4th. Game is in Charlotte. Just talked about it. Going to be a monster game, just a huge game. I don't think it's a must-win for either team, but it's a must. Don't get blown out. I think if you get blown out in this game, it's going to be tough for the committee to give you another shot, unless you just run the table. But if you lose the game and it's competitive, I think you could still maybe afford another loss, and especially if you wind up winning your conference. So if Georgia, say, they lose somewhere on here. Let's say they just lose to Auburn, rivalry game on the road, but then they win the SEC. Or even if they win the rest of their games and lose in the SEC championship, let's say to an undefeated Alabama. So again, you want to be competitive even if you don't win that game. It's going to be a big one, though, for both teams there week 1. UAB on September 11th. Again, just talked about them a second ago. Quality team. I think UAB might be better than some of their SEC opponents this year. No, just being honest about it. South Carolina on September 18th at home. We know a couple of years ago, I think it was, South Carolina upset Georgia. I don't know that they're necessarily going to have the players to be able to do that this year. So that should be a good way to start SEC play. And then you get Vanderbilt after that on September 25th. So again, you're playing two of the bottom teams in the SEC East. So start off SEC play. After that Clemson game, they get a little bit of a break. It'll be Arkansas on October 2nd at home. Again, a quality team, but Georgia definitely is the better team. And the game is at home, so you should be able to start SEC play with 3 wins without too much trouble. And then it's Auburn on October the 9th. The game where, like I said, Georgia will be favored. They're the better team, I think, right now, looking at these two teams, and it's pretty clear. But it is a rivalry game. It is on the road, a very tough place to play. And Auburn is a team that we really just don't know what to expect from at this point. So that'll be an interesting matchup there. And then after that, they'll play Kentucky. Another game that could be a little bit tricky. It's right before Florida. Now, the good news is they get a bye week between Kentucky and Florida, so they should not be looking ahead to Florida in this matchup. But Kentucky's a team that brings a lot back. Changes in the offense could help them. That's really all they've been lacking is that explosiveness on offense, a passing game. They've been able to run the football really with the best teams in the SEC, and they've had solid defense. So if they can open up the passing game, that might be a challenge for Georgia. We'll have to see how good Kentucky winds up being. And then Florida on October the 30th. The games will be in Jacksonville like it always is. And that's probably going to be the game that once again determines the SEC East. Maybe not. Georgia, I think, could lose this game, and it wouldn't shock me to see Florida with a couple of SEC losses. So, maybe if they do lose, they still would have a pretty good shot to win the East when you look at the rest of their schedule. Of course, Florida plays Alabama. They play LSU. They could lose a couple of games easily. You got Missouri on November the 6th. The game is at home. Missouri is a program that's on the rise. We saw that this past year. So that could be a bit of a test right after playing Florida. Then they'll play Tennessee on November 13th on the road. But, of course, Tennessee does not appear to be a threat this year. That program is really a mess right now. Charleston Southern after that on November the 20th. The game will be at home for Georgia, and, of course, an FCS opponent, before playing rival Georgia Tech on the road November 27th. And like I said, I'm just really looking forward to seeing these rivalries again. The Clemson, South Carolinas, Georgia, Georgia Techs, Iowa, Iowa State, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida, Florida State. I mean, all these non-conference rivalries that we did not get to see last year. Even though right now when you look at it, that game is probably going to be a blowout. Georgia should be able to take care of business. It's still going to be fun to watch. And you never know what you're going to get sometimes in these rivalry games. So again, when you look at the schedule for Georgia, I think it works out pretty well for them. Now, if you took Clemson off of this schedule, this would be looking really good for Georgia. They would have one of the easier schedules in the SEC, maybe the easiest schedule in the SEC. But throwing Clemson on there obviously makes this schedule a lot tougher. But I really like the Arkansas-Auburn draw out of the West. Of course, they play Auburn every year. So the Arkansas, the team that they draw to go along with Auburn, I like that. I like the easy start with South Carolina and Vanderbilt in the SEC play. I don't see any huge tests back-to-backs. They're probably their toughest back-to-back is going to be Florida and Missouri, which you don't have to, neither one of those games is a true road game. Kentucky on the road, or Kentucky at home after Auburn on the road, also could be a little bit of a challenge there, those two back-to-backs. But again, nothing major here. I think the schedule sets up really well for Georgia. I think the schedule definitely makes them the favorite in the SEC East. But of course, that big game, week 1 against Clemson, that's going to be, I think, their biggest test on this schedule. The Georgia Bulldogs did not have the record that they wanted in 2020. Obviously, again, playing Alabama out of the SEC West, one of their draws out of the West made it really tough for them. But again, 2 losses. You have to wonder what would have happened if JT Daniels had played sooner. A lot of what-ifs with Georgia last year. But when you look at everything they have coming back, we look at the schedule for 2021, and we're going to project what that record could be. Not an official prediction. I want to make that clear. This is simply a projection based on their strength of schedule, based on their odds to win each game. So again, this is the schedule. Clemson, the big test, week 1. You see the rest of the schedule here. We're going to be using this scale to kind of group these games together. Again, not an official prediction, simply projecting based off of odds to win each game and going very conservative with this. If it's a game that I think could be a 50-50 game, 41 to 59%, we'll leave that in white, less than a 10% in red, and you're not going to see any of these on the left because they're going to at least have a 50-50 shot in every game. 60 to 74% in purple, 75 to 90% in blue, and then over 90% in green. So those are the numbers we'll be using here. Everything is not going to come out, in the same part of a particular group there. You're going to have the blue games. Some are closer to 90%, some closer to 75%. But we can't get too specific with this. That's what I mean by when I say we just kind of group these teams together. So we start with the green, the more than 90% chance to win. And I think you've got 5 of these on the schedule for Georgia. UAB's a quality group of 5 team. Don't get me wrong, but Georgia should be able to win that game. These are games where they're going to be favored by 20-plus points. I think South Carolina at home will be another game. New head coach, a lot of roster turnover there. Game is at home for Georgia. I don't really see that being too big of a test. And then Vanderbilt, kind of the same story as South Carolina, new coach. And let's face it, Vanderbilt just does not have the talent. I don't see this game being close at all. Tennessee is a mess right now. I think you can put that game also in the green here. And then Charleston Southern, an FCS opponent. So 5 easy wins for Georgia, in my opinion. You can go ahead and write these down. You can pretty much guarantee that the Bulldogs will win all 5 of these games, which means out of 12 games, again, only 7 of them have a chance to be competitive. That's good news if you're a Georgia fan. Let's go to the next group of games, and these are the 75 to 90% games. I think Arkansas is in this category, Kentucky, Missouri, and then Georgia Tech on the road. Now, Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, these are quality teams. These are going to be closer to that 75% mark, I really think. Georgia Tech probably closer to 90%. But again, I don't really see any of these games being able to put any of these games below 75%. I think Georgia will be favored by double digits in all 4 games. And that's kind of the number we use for these blue ones. These are games where I think Vegas would have Georgia as a double-digit favorite. 10, 14, 17 points, somewhere in that range. And I think that will be the case with all 4 matchups. Again, Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, quality teams that could challenge Georgia. They're not just going to show up and blow these teams out. Those will be competitive games for the most part, but I don't know if they'll be competitive to the point where it's a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. And Georgia Tech, of course, is a rivalry game, so I don't think we can put that in the green. Georgia Tech's a program that's kind of trying to figure things out. They could be close to making a big jump. We'll see. So I think those 4 games are going to be in the blue for me. And then we go to the purple, so games that are 60 to 74%. And I got a couple of them, Auburn and Florida. I think Georgia will clearly be favored in both of these games, and we're talking about games where the spread's going to be about a touchdown, 7 or 8 points, somewhere in there. If the game was at home for Georgia, I'd probably put the Auburn one in the blue. But playing at Jordan-Hare, playing in a rivalry game against an Auburn team that we really just don't know a lot about, don't know what they're going to look like. And Bo Nix is back. We'll see if he makes any progress this offseason. So to me, that's a game where Georgia is clearly going to be favored, but not by a huge number. And kind of the same thing with Florida. Florida with a lot of question marks. I know they beat them last year, but I think Georgia is going to be favored in that matchup as well. That leaves one game there at the top. It's Clemson on September 4th, and we're going to leave this one in the white because I think it's a 50-50 matchup. I think this one could go either way. Neutral field, 2 top 5 teams to start the season more than likely. This is going to be a fun one. I cannot wait for this matchup, but when we talk about picking a winner in this one, I don't really see how you could favor one team by much. Now, I think Clemson will probably be favored by about a field goal. I think Clemson would be the pick right now, especially when you look at the young secondary for Georgia. That could change. They could add some transfers. Things could happen to help Georgia out in that area. I think overall roster talent, I'd probably favor Georgia. Again, this is a really tough call, one that I'm definitely not going to predict at this point because we're a long ways away. But I think it is a game that could go either way. It's a 50-50 game, so again, we'll leave it in the white. So what we do with this is we take anything over 75%, we count it as a win. Anything under 25%, we count it as a loss. They don't have anything as counted as a loss there. So then we just go to the the 3 games here that are under 75%. It's Clemson, Auburn, and Florida. And out of those 3 games, we just average them out. And when you average out these 3 games, you're going to be between 1 and 2 losses, but the number does come closer to 1. So 1 loss for Georgia, 11-1 is their projection for 2021. That is their projected record based on this schedule, based on how tough this schedule is. Again, this is not an official prediction. It's close to, I'll probably pick Georgia to go 11-1, maybe 12-0. I don't really see them dropping to 10-2. But I think this is very close to where I will predict, but again, not an official prediction, as we still have a lot of evaluation to do over the next few months, really, before we start predictions. But I do think that's a very fair projection for Georgia, 11-1 in 2021. What do all of you think? Give me your thoughts on Georgia and what you project their record to be this upcoming season down in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video.